Now to the death of a legend, the last of the great crooners. Tony Bennett died today at the age of 96.
Born and raised in Queens, he got his start right here in New York City. His smooth voice, unique style, and devotion to the classics carried him through a career that spanned more than 7 decades.
Yeah, he wowed even Frank Sinatra, who called Bennett the best in the business. And then nearly 50 years later, he earned a new generation of fans when he teamed up with Lady Gaga for an album of duets.
In all, Bennett released more than 70 albums and won 19 Grammy Awards. He died at his home in Midtown Manhattan near Central Park. A cause of death has not been revealed, but Bennett was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease in 2016.
From fellow artists to fans, Bennett was beloved. Entertainment reporter Sandy Kenyon joins us now, taking a look back at the life and legacy of the great Tony Bennett. Sandy.
Liz and Dave, Frank Sinatra gave Tony Bennett a big boost. Bennett was 10 crucial years younger, and Frank Sinatra was his patron for a time, and he did call him the best singer in the business. Bennett's 19 Grammy Awards, won over a 70-year career, speak to his place in music history. Just as Dave and Liz said, his passing for so many now will be a chance to reflect on how his work has touched our lives and how he spoke so eloquently the language of love. Bennett once told me he was so grateful for one love song, he never tired of singing it.
I left my heart.
Tony Bennett liked to say he wanted to be remembered for a body of work rather than just one song. But in fact, the breadth of his long career is perhaps best illustrated by his signature tune, which he performed for 60 years. Although San Francisco might lie at the heart of that hit, the guy born Anthony Benedetto will always be associated with our city, the city where he grew up in Astoria. And it is in Queens that Bennett fought to establish a performing arts high school named after his friend, Frank Sinatra.
He gave me some great advice that I've stuck to, because he said, just stay with great songs.
Bennett was a lifelong Democrat who grew to hate bigotry while serving in the Army, and later marched alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during the struggle for civil rights in the 1960s. His career suffered during the rock era, but he managed to survive long enough to be embraced by a much younger generation.
Fly me to the moon.
Appearing with Conan O'Brien 30 years ago, Bennett marveled at his continuing relevance.
It's fantastic. You know, all the young adults in America have, they consider me cool.
Bennett was in his late 80s when he sang with the late Amy Winehouse and hit another sweet spot opposite Lady Gaga in his 90s.
I've got you, yes I do, under my skin.
It was just last year the two came together for one last goodbye at Radio City, long after Bennett had revealed he was battling Alzheimer's disease.
Lady Gaga!
His admirer told 60 Minutes the two had a few last words.
Mr. Bennett, it would be my honor if I could escort you off the stage. And he said, okay.
Tony Bennett was 96 years old. Would have been 97 in just a couple of weeks. I had the opportunity, I'm happy to say, to talk to Tony Bennett many times over the years, and I never saw him angry or irritated. Not once. There was never a trace of attitude. Instead, it was more like gratitude. When I was a young reporter, a fan of his music for sure, but not yet experienced, he was so gracious and generous to me, and that same grace was reflected in his hobby, which was painting, as many of you know. His work sold well, but his true legacy, of course, is his music. And I know just what record I'll play tonight to remember him by. Live at the Sahara from 1964. Lots of great records after that, but that one's still so meaningful to me after all these years.